Three, two, one. Welcome to the Raw Prospect Podcast, guys. We're at episode 37.
I'm Michael Ween.
Amy Nixon, and it's January 2nd. Okay.
Our first podcast of 2020.
Yeah. First podcast of
today.
2020.
We're gonna do our NFL wildcard game predictions, all 4 games. We're gonna go into a little bit. We're gonna talk about the national championship because I think that warrants discussion. Talk about kind of what we saw in the 2 playoff games this past weekend. And then after that, we're going to do something cool. We're going to do our 2020 NBA bold predictions, and we'll explain that when we get to it. But let's start with our wild card game predictions in the NFL, beginning with the first game, the Buffalo Bills at the Houston Texans.
Okay. This game, I didn't know where to go with this game. I picked the Texans, but the Bills have the better team, in my opinion. Overall, their defense is better. They have a better running game. And the only reason I picked the Texans is because they're at home, and I believe in Deshaun Watson. Those are the only reasons. I honestly, my gut was telling me to pick the Bills, but I just think Deshaun Watson, being the terrific player that he is, can make the plays when needed, the big third down conversions, the big plays in the red zone to be able to win the game. And also, this is Josh Allen's first playoff game. On the road, you can't make many mistakes and still be able to win. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll respond to that environment.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll just get straight to the point. I think Buffalo's going to win the game. I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think that it'll probably be, I'd say, 24-20, something around in that range. I just think that I think the marquee matchup, you have to look on the outside, DeAndre Hopkins against Tre'Davious White.
Mm-hmm.
White, I mean, he's been one of the more underrated corners. He should be in that top 5, if not top 3 cornerback discussion when we talk about best corners in the league. He's right up there with Stephon Gilmore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not Stephon Gilmore, but he's right up there with them. You talk about 6 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 58 tackles against them. We know what DeAndre Hopkins is, 104 receptions. You know, he's a 100-catch guy, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 11 yards per reception. That's going to be a key matchup, and I am really looking for the health of Will Fuller. If he cannot be out there, it's going to make a huge difference, because if you look at the statistics, and I don't have them in front of me, but if you look at the statistics in like the 21 games he's played over his career, Watson's passer rating goes up, his yards per game goes up, his touchdowns go up, because, you know, they can't double cover Hopkins when a guy like Will Fuller's on the football field. I think Devin Singletary is going to be key in this game. I think Buffalo's going to run the football, control time of possession, and probably make 1 or 2 more plays than Houston will. That's just my gut feeling.
Actually, when have I not ever gone with my gut when making predictions? I'm gonna change my pick. I'm gonna choose the Bills. My gut is telling me to choose the Bills. I think they'll be able to dictate the pace of this game and make it low scoring. I think at the end of the day, a team like the Texans that doesn't have an offensive line, doesn't have a great secondary, and their run defense is okay. But I think they're really missing J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, because they're missing that presence, like being able to get to the passer. And I think the key to this game is just going to be third downs. If the Bills can, I'd say, if they can convert on 35% of their third downs, I think they'll win this game.
Yeah, you mentioned converting third downs, but I also think you also mentioned getting pressure on Josh Allen. Now, I don't have the exact stat again, but his passer rating goes way down when he's under pressure compared to when he has a clean pocket. I think J.J. Watt is expected to play in this game, but we don't know how healthy he is and what impact he'll be able to make. So that's a big question. So I think, if Houston can get pressure on Josh Allen, that might be their only hope in stopping this Bills offense that's actually been pretty weak over the course of the season in terms of where they rank in the NFL. But I think getting pressure is key because that secondary, they haven't been very good for Houston. So I think if you can create pressure and maybe force Allen into one or two mistakes, that could prove the difference in the game for either team.
Yeah, I think as long as the Texans can just be opportunistic, because we know being an inexperienced quarterback like Josh Allen, he's going to make a few bad throws per game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take advantage of those and turn those into turnovers, that might be the difference in the game. But I think at the end of the day, really the Bills' defense is going to win the game for them. I think I was underrating their defense when I picked the Texans originally. And I think they'll be able to get up and press coverage against these receivers and put pressure on them and make Deshaun Watson throw it into tight windows like we saw last year in their playoff game against the Colts.
Yeah, I think the guys up front for Buffalo, Ed Oliver, what's his name?
Shaq Lawson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two guys, it's going to be, they got to give Watson adequate time to throw. And I think one of the things you also have to look at, there's so many factors, is when you get pressure, when either team gets pressure, watch for Watson to scramble. You have to be aware of both quarterbacks' athleticism and their ability to make plays with their legs, especially Allen for Houston. If he ends up hurting them on the ground with his legs in those third down situations where they get pressure and he escapes the pocket and makes plays with his legs, that could spell real trouble for Houston. And I think you have to be able to contain that. Take that away from him. Make him
a pocket passer.
Make him a pocket passer.
Right. I like that matchup with him and against the Texans linebackers. I think he can, in most cases, outrun them when it comes down to it. I think we covered everything we need to in that game. I think I'm gonna.
So we're both picking
I need to give a score prediction.
I said 24-20 Buffalo.
Okay, I'm gonna say 20-17 Buffalo.
Okay, so we're both kind of in that same range. Yeah. So we'll move on. That was the first game. That will be played, I believe, 3:30 on Saturday. The next game after that, and the nightcap on Saturday, is the Tennessee Titans, who locked up the 6th seed to sneak into the playoffs with a 9-7 record.
Right.
Against the New England Patriots, who lost their last game and lost their chance to get a bye to the
Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins, yes. So this should be interesting. You want to go first on what your initial opinions are?
I think this is another one of those tough games to pick because you don't know what Ryan Tannehill will bring you in a playoff environment and whether they'll be able to get Derrick Henry going. But knowing Bill Belichick, he's going to take Derrick Henry out of the game. So the key has to be Ryan Tannehill. He has to make the big throws. And when the Patriots send pressure, because we know they will, they're a gambling defense. They have their famed zero blitz coverage, right? They have that one safety in the back, and they send one more blocker than you have up front. So will Ryan Tannehill be able to make those quick decisions and find his open man? I think the answer is no. Ultimately, I think it'll be a close game, but I'm gonna roll with the Patriots here.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tennessee will keep it close. I don't think Tennessee's intimidated by New England by any means.
Right.
You saw in last season, even though the game was in Tennessee, and it was with a different quarterback and Marcus Mariota. They beat them 34-10 last year. I mean, New England's lost 8 times in the last 30 regular season games, and 4 of those losses have come to former Patriots coaches.
Right.
They lost to Brian Flores-led Dolphins team just last week. They lost to the Bill O'Brien coach Houston team, also a New England system guy. And last year, they lost to this Mike Vrabel Tennessee team with Marcus Mariota. And they also got beat down by Matt Patricia and the Detroit Lions. So that will be an interesting coaching matchup. I just think when you look at what the Patriots do, even though their offense hasn't been playing well, they take – what does Belichick do? He takes away your 1 or 2 best weapons on offense. And for the Titans, that's Derrick Henry, who was fantastic. 1,540 yards, 16 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns through the air, 5.1 yards per carry. Excuse me. And A.J. Brown, the receiver, who was also great. The rookie, 52 catches, over 1,000 yards, 20.2 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns. But when you look at it, I think the Patriots are going to commit resources up front to stopping Derrick Henry, and they're going to put Stephon Gilmore on A.J. Brown and force Tannehill to make plays to the other guys. The other guys have to win their matchups if Tennessee wants any chance in this game. But I think Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill will be able to do enough to kind of control time of possession and make it a close game.
Right. I think you hit everything right on the head, but I just want to say the Titans wide receiver core, I don't think the Patriots are intimidated by any of them. Stephon Gilmore, I think he's going to take A.J. Brown out of the game. So I think the key will be former top 10 pick Corey Davis on the other side. Will he be able to beat his man? That'll be interesting to see. I think that'll be the key matchup.
Ryan Tannehill has actually beaten the Patriots 4 times in his career, which is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But the problem is all 4 of those wins came when he was playing at home. He's actually 0-6 against New England at Gillette Stadium with 5 touchdowns and 10 interceptions with only a 70 quarterback rating. So he has struggled in past times when playing at Gillette Stadium. It's just history, but, it's just something to think about. Right. I think it's going to be tough for the Titans to it's going to be tough for their secondary playmakers to make plays.
Right.
Make those big plays that they need to win. Right. I think they'll keep it close, but it's Brady. They're going to be fired up. They didn't want to lose to Miami last week. They wanted that bye. Brady's going to be pissed off. I just think I'm going to say 30-21.
Okay. I'm going to say it's low scoring first half and then Patriots pull away late. I'm going to go 34-17.
Okay.
But right before we move on, watch out for Jurrell Casey this game. We know Brady doesn't like pressure up the middle, being the immobile quarterback that he is. He doesn't like pressure coming right up the gut. Jurrell Casey is a defensive tackle for the Titans, and I'd say he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL. So watch out for him.
Now, before we go, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think New England is one and done? Do you think they win this game and lose next week in Kansas City? Or do you think they'll be able to find a way?
I think they're one and done. But
I agree. It's so hard to say. We'll wait on that. Yeah. I just wanted to see what your initial gut feeling was on that.
Yeah, my gut feeling is one and done.
It is interesting how they do the schedule this year. They did AFC on Saturday and NFC on Sunday. So we'll get to the better conference, the NFC. The first game will be played on noon on Sunday. The Minnesota Vikings at the New Orleans Saints.
This game, it's all up to Kirk Cousins, man. I mean, we know how good of a team the Vikings are.
Yep. On paper.
But whether they'll keep it close or not, whether they'll be able to put the points on the board, it's all up to Kirk Cousins. That game that he had against the Packers, to be honest, that was unacceptable. Like, you have the defense giving you a chance in the red zone early in the game. You have a chance to go up 10 on the Packers early in that game, and then you can't get a first down basically the entire first half. If it ends up being like that, the Vikings have no chance. Because if Kirk Cousins plays a dud, they're going to get blown out.
I honestly think this is the best game when you look on paper, like matchup-wise, because they're both great teams on paper.
Right.
But I just think it was actually, for me, the easiest game to pick.
Right.
I think New Orleans is going to win, and they're going to cover the spread. I believe the spread's like -8. They're favored by 8 points. I think they're going to win and cover the spread. I just don't see – Minnesota has a good defense, but you're not going to go into the Superdome and stop Drew Brees and this offense that's averaged 40 points per game over the last 4 games and is steaming hot. It's just not. I mean, it's not going to happen.
It's just unrealistic.
Drew Brees,
to think that way.
74% completion percentage. He missed 5 games, and he still threw for 3,000 yards. 7.9 yards per attempt, 27 touchdowns, only 4 picks. I mean, he's one of the best. We all know that. Alvin Kamara had a slow start, but he's picked it up over the last 2 games with 4 touchdowns, finished with 5 touchdowns, 800 yards on the ground, but 500 yards receiving. I think it's not on the ground where he has to make an impact. It has to be through the air. And I think we all know what Michael Thomas is. Record season, 149 catches, 1,700 yards, 9 touchdowns, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for quarterbacks, he might have won MVP.
Honestly.
But I think, even though I think New Orleans will be able to score easily, I think Jared Cook, if New Orleans wants to go deep, like get to a Super Bowl, Jared Cook, that tight end, has to be that third option on that New Orleans offense. That's just me.
I agree.
If they want to go deep. I'm not talking about this game, but if they want to advance to where they want to go, he's got to be
right.
I just think, over the past 2 years, the Vikings are 2-10 against teams which finish with a winning record in the regular season. That's 16.7 win percentage, less than half the league average when you talk about winning percentage versus teams with a winning record. We all know what Kirk Cousins, record in primetime games, big games like this is.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a good quarterback. He's just not a big game quarterback, not a guy you can trust in these big games.
Right.
And I think New Orleans is going to prove too much. I'm going to say 35-24.
I'm gonna say it's a little closer than that. Actually, I think the Vikings will cover the spread. I think the Saints will win, though. I think Saints win 28-24. I think, like you said, the rosters match up. Like, in terms of on paper, they're player for player,
Yeah.
But the key here is just mental. I think the Vikings just have a mental block when it comes to like believing in their quarterback to make plays. Yeah. And I think that'll hold them back as long as Kirk Cousins is their quarterback.
Yeah, and the key for Minnesota, we know what Kirk Cousins has to do, but Dalvin Cook, he's coming back from an injury. He's got to be good. If he's not 100%, the Vikings are cooked.
Yeah,
sorry to make that.
If the Vikings want to win this game, Dalvin Cook has to have at least 130 yards total, like passing and running.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be the guy that pushes them over the top.
Mm-hmm. So We're both picking New Orleans. You think they'll cover the spread? You think Minnesota will cover the spread. I think New Orleans will cover the spread. So we'll move on to the last game. Really interesting game, I guess.
Right.
When you talk about the directions these teams are going.
Right. I think my pick may catch you off guard.
Seahawks and Eagles. So you said it's going to catch me off guard.
I'm rolling with the Eagles. When you look at the way the Seahawks ended this season, when they can't run the football, they're just plain and simple not a good football team. I think late in the season, people started to figure out the Seahawks. You put your players in the box, and then you make them drop back and pass, and they don't. And I know how good Russell Wilson is, but their offensive line is just not good enough to be able to drop back 40 times in a game and win. Like they're just not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be an interesting game for sure.
I want to pick Seattle, but I'm actually convinced Philly's going to win. I think it's going to be close, but I'm actually convinced Philly is going to win. It's going to be so emotionally difficult for Seattle to recover from what they've been through, not only last week and that insane game against San Francisco, but in the past couple of weeks, losing Chris Carson, losing Rashad Penny, and bringing in. I mean, I love the story and all. Bringing in Marshawn Lynch.
He's not himself. Let's be real.
I just don't think it's, him and Travis Homer it's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
I think Philly, the area where they have the real advantage in this game is that defensive line against Seattle's offensive line.
Right.
I think they're going to have to dominate because, we've seen it. Russell Wilson's great. He was an MVP candidate. He's been an MVP candidate over the past couple of years, but it's really hard to win a football game when you have to drop back and throw 40-plus times. I don't care how good you are.
Right.
And I know that the Eagles secondary is, very depleted, injury-prone, but when you look at it, I have a stat. They're allowing 241 passing yards per game at home. That actually ranks fourth in the league.
Wow.
So their pass defense is actually pretty good when at home, regardless of who's on the football field. And you look at it, they're also first in rushing yard defense or rushing defense in home games this season. They're tied with the Patriots for best rushing yard defense at home, which is an interesting statistic. But I think
you wouldn't think that would be the case with all their injuries.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but that's what it is. So I think, both teams have been very resilient. Both teams have that resiliency that you like to see. And it's going to be a dogfight down to the end. But I think this could come down to a field goal.
Right.
And I think Carson Wentz has been playing so well with literally, nothing aside from Zach Ertz.
And Zach Ertz is out, too.
And he might be out. I think he's a game time decision. But, he's been fantastic with what he's had to work with. Winning those games, fighting through all these injuries that they've had. I just think, both quarterbacks are great, but it's going to come down to, I guess, so hard.
Yeah.
So hard to say.
Yeah.
If Seattle had Chris Carson and they had their running backs healthy, I'd probably pick Seattle.
I would pick Seattle.
But that's huge. I think that's going to do Seattle, and they have not looked good. They have not been a good football team over the past 3 weeks. They got run over by the Cardinals team at home a couple weeks ago.
Smacked by the Rams.
They just haven't been.
And even though they went down to the wire with the 49ers, until the second half of that game, they weren't doing anything offensively.
Yeah.
The key is it's going to be on Carson Wentz because I think the Seahawks might start out slow just from the fatigue factor. Coming off you see it so many times in the NFL, coming off a a game where you're at an emotional high, where you basically put it all on the line. You come next week and you lay a dud. You see it so many times in the NFL.
Mhm.
But
so what score-wise,
tough,
we got to
man.
predict scores. I'm going to say
I'm
27-23
27-23.
Philly.
Okay. I'm gonna say a little bit high scoring than that.
I don't know what the line is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I'm guessing that's
honestly.
a Philly cover. I'm guessing Seattle might be favored still.
I think they're favored by. I think they got 2.5. I think. I'm going with Philly. 33-30. But
Okay.
that's such a tough game to pick.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to pick against Russell Wilson with the amount of talent he has. But you've seen it in the past with those Packers teams. When you don't have any weapons to go to, it just you can't win like that, man.
Mhm.
Like no matter how good your quarterback is.
So, is there anything else NFL? I know we don't want to sidetrack, but is there anything else playoff wise or coaching search wise you want to say? Maybe about your Cowboys, or we can talk Cowboys and Steelers before we move on, or we can just move on. I'm just wondering, since we did that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to talking a little Cowboys and Steelers. I want to see what your reaction was to this last. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a tough ending. Great story, Duck, but he's not good. He won a couple games against the Browns and the Cardinals, and he came in and won them the Chargers game earlier in the season, but he's just not good. But he's a guy from Sanford, not even on the team to start the year, coming into training camp, and they trade Josh Dobbs like week 2 or 3. They bring him in. And little does he know that not only Ben gets hurt, but Mason Rudolph gets knocked out of that game against Baltimore. And if it wasn't for Smith-Schuster fumbling, they win that game, and he leads them to win that game. He was good early, but I think teams eventually figured him out. James Conner was hurt too much. Juju was hurt too much. Down years for both of those guys. A season where they really needed them. The defense, though, is, I think, it's something to look forward to in 2019. I think we need to 2020. What am I? Still living in the past, but no. They need to, as far as off-season priorities, you have to lock up Bud Dupree. This is his 5th year. He proved that he deserves that contract. Give the money to him. And if you want to, extend TJ Watt. He's the best player maybe on the team.
Right.
So
I'd say he's the most consistent.
Yeah, most consistent player on the team. So I would lock down both pass rushers. Devin Bush had a pretty good rookie season. Could have been better, but he filled the void for Ryan Shazier nicely. I really liked. I think one of the more underrated free agency moves was picking up Steven Nelson in free agency to oppose Joe Hayden.
Yeah, he was solid all year.
Secondary, yeah, both guys were solid all year. And obviously the Minkah trade was awesome. It kind of turned their season around.
My only concern about the Minkah trade is now you don't have a first-round pick. So if you wanted to maybe get a quarterback, you could do it.
That's a story for another day. But I think overall, offense bad, defense good. Just didn't have enough to make the playoffs. All you people calling for Tomlin's heads again, this happens every year. They miss the playoffs. They don't do well. People call for Tomlin's head, even though he was the guy that kept this whole thing together.
Right. I think he did a great job this year.
He did a great job.
I don't think,
given what he had, I think, it's hard to say what Ben will be next year if he comes back. I think he's planning on it, from what I've heard. But I think he has a little. I might be biased, but I think he can give us one more good season.
Yeah, I think he has a little bit left in the tank. I think with your defense better now, I think he'll be back in the role he was back early in the 2010s, with the great defense, being a little bit more safe in terms of decision making, not having to outscore the other team. I think that's where he's at his best, to be honest. So
we'll have to see.
Yeah.
I think now the offensive coordinator, Randy Fichtner, I wouldn't be opposed to getting rid of him just because I didn't like a lot of the play calling. Not only the past couple of weeks, but over the course of the entire season. But that would be the only really coaching move that I would really look to make if I were Tomlin. But I don't think it's going to happen because they really hired Fichtner because Ben, and they had that relationship, that continuity. He was the quarterback coach, over the entirety of Ben's career, and Ben wanted him to be offensive coordinator. But since he got hurt, it kind of went up in flames.
Right.
So, you might be able to give Fichtner one more year, see what he can do with a healthy Roethlisberger. Because I don't think, even though Roethlisberger played that New England game and played half that Seattle game to start off the season, I don't think he was healthy.
Right.
Either game. And he finally, I guess, the elbow popped and out for the year. But I think if you want to talk coaching moves, that would be the only suggestion I would have.
Right.
Cowboys?
Okay. Well, we saw on the last podcast, I was like, fire Garrett now, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It was a great thought. I wish it would have happened, but, Jerry Jones is just a stubborn old bastard, honestly. He's just stuck in his ways. The thing is, at this point, as good as this team was, we're clearly just living in the past. Like, we're trying to relive the 90s and win with this big three, Dak, Amari and Zeke, and run the football and have the best offensive line of the league and dominate that way. But these guys aren't those guys. We need to evolve, and the game has changed. We need to move forward and look for something new. And I'm not saying blow it up, but I'm saying we need to, what I thought this year was that Kellen Moore was going to come in and bring a more modern style offense, and that just didn't really happen. You didn't see the motion pre-snap that we saw earlier in the year. It kind of dissipated as the year went on, and that was a little bit concerning.
I think the identity kind of changed game to game. I don't think they had an identity.
We didn't have an identity the entire season, really. I think all that money that we have invested in our O-line, it didn't amount to anything this year. Our O-line was a whole lot of average, to be honest.
So do you give Dak the contract?
I think you just do it, honestly. You just have to think, where would we be without him?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not one of those guys that just hates on Dak just to hate,
No.
He has his moments where he's a little bit but overall,
he's a good quarterback. He's a winner.
He's solid. Yeah, he's a winner.
Good quarterback.
Yeah, he should. For the most part, we've seen him show up in big moments, and that's the thing you want in a quarterback. If he can just work on his accuracy a little bit, I think he'll be our guy. But
so, who would you like to see? I mean, Garrett's not fired yet, but we assume he will be.
Right.
So, who would you like to see fill that void? Any guys in particular?
My original guy was Ron Rivera, but obviously he was hired for the Redskins. The next guy would probably be Urban Meyer. because
I think
he's going to bring his staff in and he's going to change the culture. And I think overall the culture here it's kind of toxic because you see the guys, they look comfortable. Like they're not having to fight for their job week to week if they don't play well. You see all of our players, all of our starters, they were set in stone. Even Jason Witten, even when he was struggling, he was still going out there every play, you know?
I'm just speaking from opinion and from personal, I guess, feeling. But I think the only way Urban commits to a job
Right.
or even considers an NFL job is if the Cowboys call. I don't think he's gonna, because I mean, you look at him now. He still has a role in the Ohio State University. He's I believe like the athletic director or something to do with the athletic department. He has a job there. He's a college football analyst. I think he likes that job. He's making a lot of money between the two jobs. I think the only way, this is just my personal feeling, I could be wrong, I could be totally wrong on this, but I just think the only way he'll even consider coming to the NFL, and I'm not talking about college, we don't know what jobs will open up college-wise and whether or not he'd be interested in coaching college again. But I think the only way he takes an NFL job or even considers it is if Dallas Cowboys. I just don't see him taking the Browns job, no GM, all the mess that is.
Right.
The Giants, I mean, maybe, but
I think if he's going to take a job, it's going to be on his terms, though.
Yeah.
With Jerry Jones's reputation with coaches being too involved in past, it's just kind of unrealistic, you know? I think the more realistic hire is probably someone like Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
But with him interviewing for the Panthers, he's probably going to be off the table pretty soon. So I don't know where you look at this point. I don't even care. Just get Garrett out of there and then
just get a guy that can come in and establish, a culture, an identity, and just, I don't know,
a toughness, just an attitude, you know. What the reason why I wanted Ron Rivera, Chisel Adonis mentioned it. He's a attitude type of coach. He's not gonna tolerate any kind of drama or anything like that. Like if you're not playing well, you're going to the bench. Like it doesn't matter how much you're paid. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. And he even, I guess, mentioned it, or if you listen to his introductory press conference in Washington, he even said, we are going to establish a whole new culture, a whole new attitude within this locker room, within this organization. And it speaks to what Chisel Adonis said in our last podcast together.
Right.
So, he was right, and I think that's what the Cowboys need. But we'll move on. We are 38 minutes in, so we'll do a quick discussion. College Football National Championship. We'll discuss kind of what we saw in the playoff games and then kind of preview this national championship between LSU and Clemson. First opinions, thoughts?
That LSU-Oklahoma game, I don't think I have ever seen a flawless game to that magnitude in college out of a quarterback. I think Joe Burrow,
touchdown, 7 passing, 1 rushing.
He might be the best pocket passer prospect since Peyton Manning. He is.
You can make the argument.
He is polished to the point where he just throwing dots time after time after time after time, running out of the pocket. Seeing the entire field. Oh my goodness.
Jefferson and Chase. I mean, he has Jefferson, Chase, on the outside and multiple other, Moss, the tight end.
Right.
Edwards-Helaire is key. I mean, with the 2 weeks off, he should be able to be back to 100% health. 16 touchdowns this year. But Burrow, man, he's a problem. I mean, Clemson's going to have to create some type of pressure.
You have to.
Some type of pressure.
And I think
Oklahoma,
Vrabel's, their defensive coordinator, he's the guy to do it. If anybody in the entirety of college football can dial up the pressure against someone like Joe Burrow, it's him. So that's the most encouraging part for if you want to see someone stop him. But let's talk about the Big 12 for a second.
Okay.
What the heck was that? I mean, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, terrible.
Wow. Like, Jalen Hurts looked awful. I don't know if he was too pumped up. It was his last game. But, wow. Missing wide open targets, and just like, it was ugly. And personally, I think Oregon would have been I think Oregon's better than Oklahoma. I'm just put it out there. I think they're better than Oklahoma.
I agree with you.
And I think the precedent in college football right now is if you have 2 losses, you're out. Yeah. But the thing is, what kind of loss was it?
Yeah.
They lost to Auburn first game of the year by 3 points.
Yeah, SEC powerhouse like Auburn.
Yeah,
they're not powerhouse, but they're up there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really just take them out of the discussion just because they have an extra loss. You have to really look at the talent profile and just look, and you can just watch them. They're clearly a more physical team, a more disciplined team.
It was a bad bowl season for the Big 12.
Right.
I think Texas was the only team to win a bowl game in the Big 12. And that was good to see, but that's a discussion for another day.
Right.
Let's talk about what you saw from Clemson in that Ohio State game and talk about that a little bit, and then your initial gut feeling on who's going to win this game.
It's hard for me to pick against LSU, especially playing in New Orleans. I think you can't underrate that factor. That is a home game. Like, I don't care who you ask. That is a home game.
It's a home game.
I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. You have the 2 best quarterbacks in college football. But Clemson, man, it's hard. Like, it's hard for me to be convinced watching that Clemson Ohio State game that Clemson was actually the better team, because I mean, for the most part, Ohio State dominated that game.
Yeah,
they just shot themselves in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the refs argument, but I mean, at the end of the day, Clemson made the plays they needed to. It's hard. It's hard to predict college football at this point.
Even though I rarely bet against Clemson, even though they play an easy schedule and they weren't really tested until the Ohio State game. Even though I don't bet against Clemson and probably wouldn't if it was any other season and this wasn't happening with this LSU offense and what they can do offensively, I'd probably pick Clemson to win again for the 3rd time in the past 4 years. But I think it's be close. I think this is gonna be great, but it's just some teams are destined for this type of thing.
Right. This team has that Cam Newton Auburn feel to them. They just from the start, they just feel like they're the best team in college football, even though it's not a fact yet.
I mean, they have
You
5-star guys.
Just
like,
watching them like
every
all
position.
across the field, the amount of talent that they have is just.
I mean, it's number 1 pick this year against number 1 pick next year.
Yeah.
Burrow versus Lawrence. So
I think it's going to be a great game.
It'll be a great game. I'm going like 38-35, 35-31, something like that.
I think it's going to be a really high scoring game. I think I'm going to
like
say
40s or 50s.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a thriller.
Okay.
We're in for a roller coaster ride.
That's what we all hope for.
I'm going to say LSU wins 49-46.
Wow. I would love to see that.
Me too.
All right. So that will do it for our football discussion. We did wild card predictions in case you haven't been watching, and we did college football discussion. So we're going to do – this will be a fun segment. It's going to be 2020 NBA bowl predictions. So what we have is we have a list of 7-8 bowl predictions for the next, I guess, year or decade.
Right.
In the NBA. And we got these from an Instagram account.
Right.
What is it called?
It is called.
You can look for that. But we got these. We got these from an Instagram account. And we're gonna read the prediction, and then we're each gonna
say
basically agree, disagree type thing, and why.
Yeah. Okay. It's from the Hoops Wire on Instagram. Go check them out. Shout out to them.
Go follow them. Very interesting account if you like the NBA. I didn't do a whole lot of research. I'm just gonna go from what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like agree, disagree, but I don't have actual statistics and facts to back up what I'm saying. But I can do it. So the first one is the 2019 NBA draft class will prove to be the best draft class in the past 5 years. Agree or disagree?
I'm gonna go disagree here. When you look at the 2018 draft class
last year
with Trae Young and Luka,
yeah,
I think those are going to be the two players that carry the NBA throughout the 2020s. And with the amount of talent of those two players, I think those are two superstar players, and it doesn't matter how bad the rest of the draft is. Those are two amazing players, and I don't think 2019, even though it's the deeper draft, I don't think they're going to have any.
Yeah,
it's still early to tell, but I don't think there's going to be any like first team All NBA level players.
Yeah,
I think Ja Morant eventually can become that, but when you look at the directions the Mavericks are going in, the direction the Hawks are going, it's on the up and up, and I don't see the Grizzlies having as much of an impact in the 2020s as those other teams will, and I think that's why I went with the 2018 draft instead.
I actually agree. I'm going to disagree with the statement.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 2018 draft class. I think Luka's going to end up winning multiple MVPs in this decade.
I love hearing that.
I don't know. This Dallas team they're going to be probably a 4, 5, 6 seed in the West this year, and that's great. I think him and KP are going to play together for a long time, and if they can get those other couple pieces, maybe they can get to an NBA Finals, maybe win. We don't know. It's a new decade,
right?
But yeah, I think the 18 draft class. I pulled it up. You talk about Trae Young. I mean, what he's doing in Atlanta, even though they're not winning a whole ton of games, I think they're bottom of the East actually. But even though they're not winning, you look at his stats; they're fantastic. We know what we discussed, Luka. I mean, we don't really have to.
Right.
I mean, I told you, DeAndre Ayton, who's been suspended, but he's another big piece that you have to look at down in Phoenix. And even Michael Porter Jr. Like, we haven't seen him play a whole lot, but I think he could be another guy.
Right.
who could eventually, if he can figure out how to stay healthy,
Emerge,
be
right.
a key piece for that Denver team.
Right. We just saw recently he was put into the starting
And he
lineup
did
and he
pretty
had a
good.
great game.
Yeah, like 19 points or something.
Yeah.
On 8 of 10 shooting. Like,
That is what that team needs.
Yeah.
You know, they need that bucket getter, and he can be that guy.
So we both agree, or we both disagree with that statement, but we
Right.
both agree on
Right.
what the best draft class is.
Right. 2018.
Okay, so the next statement is Kevin Durant, coming back from injury, will never average more than 25 points per game again.
This is tough. For me personally, I don't think Durant and Kyrie will ever win a title in Brooklyn.
No, I agree with that.
But I think he can average 25.
I think he can.
I think he can do it.
His skill set. I mean, you just pass it to him in the post, hitting those mid-range shots. I mean, he can score from anywhere. Like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't need
Athleticism, right?
The athleticism or like the, I guess, agility or whatever you want to call it to score in this league. He's 7-footer who can shoot from anywhere,
right?
And score from anywhere. Like he
can shoot over the top of anyone. Yeah. You don't need an Achilles to hit a jump shot.
Exactly.
It's just he's just a different level of scorer that we haven't seen face this injury.
Yeah.
I think he's just on another level. It's just simple as that. Yeah. We saw actually I've done some research and we saw Dominique Wilkins when he went through this injury. He came back and he made an all-star team and averaged 26 points per game on better efficiency after the injury. So he's the only one that has ever been any type of successful after an injury of that magnitude, but it's happened. So
I think if anything, it might actually help him, like in terms of
that's the crazy thing, because when he tries to dribble too much and tries to get all crazy, that's when teams stop him. Actually, just getting the ball and shooting it and not doing anything.
I mean, that's all he has to do.
Yeah, that's all he really ever had to do. But he just made it harder on himself, I guess. I don't know.
So the first two statements, we both disagree. So let's see if we agree with this one. Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Joel Embiid. And I changed it a little bit to what it says on the Instagram account. Will become the best rivalry of the decade. Agree or disagree?
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no too.
I'm going to say Luka and Trae Young will be the best rivalry of the next decade. And that's only because I think Joel Embiid will suffer more injuries in the future. I think it's only inevitable. I think he has about a 3 or 4 year window of all NBA type player, and then after that he might it's a little bit more foggy, So in terms of over the course of an entire decade, I feel more confident in the two younger players, Trae Young and Luka Doncic.
I agree with that. I mean, with Embiid, it's so hard to tell.
Right.
We know his injury history, but it's so hard to tell, game to game what you're going to get.
Right.
And Giannis is going to be great for the next 10, 15 years. But I just think, if you want to talk about the Eastern Conference, I think the Bucks and the 76ers could be a good rivalry or a great rivalry over this next decade.
I think
the Sixers have some things to figure out,
right?
Obviously. But,
I think, to be honest, I think player rivalries are kind of dead at this point in the NBA. After Malice had the Palace, the league has kind of gone away from promoting that kind of bad blood between teams. And also the death of divisions playing a factor has also played a role in the death of rivalries in the NBA. So
okay,
I'm gonna go with no again.
So no.
Yeah.
Okay. This one, LeBron James will not win another NBA championship. I haven't thought about this a whole lot.
This one's really interesting, honestly. You really just don't know, man. It's if LeBron can just be any type of himself in the playoffs this year, I think he can get the Lakers to the finals. I think that's realistic. So saying that he won't get another ring, I think that's a little bit.
Yeah,
I think that's a little bit
with this. I think he's going to win one.
I think he will. I think it's just fate for him to get at least 4 rings. I mean, the player of LeBron James's caliber, if he ends with 3 rings to end his career, that just kind of feels underwhelming, you know?
Yeah, I think he's going to get another one. I think, whether it's this year.
this year. We're getting a little bit off this podcast.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's okay. This year or next year, the year after that, whenever it is, I think it will happen. The combination of Anthony Davis, one of the best talents we've seen come out of the draft in the past decade. Like he's fantastic. I don't know how you don't. Like LeBron with AD. If LeBron's any shell of himself in the playoffs, and they can get past what we think is their biggest roadblock, the Clippers,
right,
and Kawhi, why not?
Right. If the Lakers make the finals, they have to be favored against any team that comes out of the East. The Bucks, the Celtics, the Sixers. I can't see them beating a LeBron-led team. Those teams have been LeBron's son for a decade. Yeah. So you can't even you can't bet against LeBron against those teams. No.
We disagree with his with this account's bold predictions. That's 4 for 4 now. Do you want
to? You continue with the next one. I'm gonna go get the door.
Okay. Minor disruption. So we'll kind of sidetrack. I'm just going to kind of talk about, the NBA today and what's kind of happening. Go through the standings. Update y'all on the standings. So let's see. Do I need to move my car?
Huh?
What's up?
Oh no, just my sister.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
So sorry for the disruption. We're halfway done, so we have 4 more. We're 4 for 4 on disagree. So the next one is James Harden will retire a top 3 shooting guard in NBA history.
I think I'll agree with this one.
I agree.
James Harden, he's such a polarizing player, but I think the only way he can change his the way people view him at this point is playoff success. I think he can get to the Western Conference Finals this year. Personally, it's tough though. It all depends on seeding though.
Yeah.
It has to be on playoff success. It has to be in the playoffs. He has to perform because up to this point,
we haven't
seen it, you know?
Yeah.
He has everything else. Everything else you'd want on a resume is there. But
scoring, everything.
Statistically. Scoring titles, MVP.
Yeah.
you could argue he's the best scorer. He's the best. You could argue that he's the best scoring guard we've ever seen.
Yeah.
You could make an argument. I'm not saying I agree with that, but
you could
make the argument.
I agree with this. I just think I think he finished last decade with the most points scored, if I'm not mistaken. And that's saying a lot.
I mean, based on how he started the decade, that's unbelievable.
Over these past 3 or 4 years, he's been,
turning on the burners
and averaging 30 plus every year. It's incredible what he does. We just need to see that playoff success, what he can do if he can get over that, I guess, I don't know what it is, but something.
Whatever mental block he has in the playoffs. The interesting thing is when you look at his numbers in the playoffs, they're really not that bad. But everybody knows when you watch him play in the playoffs, he just doesn't look like himself more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the concern. That's the most concerning thing.
Yeah. So what type of playoff, what does he have to do in order to fire himself?
I'd say in a big moment, if he is matched up against the Lakers or the Clippers this year in the playoffs, you need to see him perform, just straight up, just dominate the way you do in the regular season. There's no other
way.
Yeah, clearly. There's no other way this Rocket team wins, and that's been made clear the entire season. If he doesn't put up 40, that team loses, and that's, in my opinion, that's no way to win a championship. But you just have to see him. Okay, if say the Lakers and the Rockets are in a game 7 or just any kind of elimination game, he just needs to play better. In elimination games, his stats are atrocious in elimination games.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's your answer. Play better in elimination games.
Yeah, that's the simple
whether
answer,
you win or lose, just show up. Right. Just show up. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we finally agree on a statement.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is kind of out of the blue, I guess. Tyler Hero will eventually develop into a top 5 shooting guard. Agree or disagree?
When you look at the direction the league is going, I can definitely see that for sure. I think he's a more skilled version of. Okay. This might sound a little brash, but I think he may be a more skilled version of Klay Thompson. A young Klay Thompson. Like coming out of the league, Klay Thompson didn't have the ball handling ability. He was just a shooter, but I think he's more ahead in that
in his development,
in that facet in his development than a Klay Thompson was coming out of college.
I agree with that.
I think he could average. I could see him averaging 23, giving you 23, 4, and 5, maybe.
I could see that. He's really young. What is it? His second year? No,
he's a rookie. He's 19 years old.
Rookie, 19. There you go. Well, there you go. 3 or 4 years from now, I could definitely see it.
Yeah, for sure. But you never know, injuries, and also, the team has to win. That's also plays a key factor. When you look at a guy like Bradley Beal, he's putting up the numbers, but his team isn't winning, so you don't think of him as
he's kind of irrelevant.
Right. So the team has to win for him to be able to. But I think they will.
But right now they're winning, and they have young players, and Bam Adebayo is potential All-Star reserve. And, they have these players and a good coach. So I think, if they continue to win like this,
I think it's likely. I think
it's likely.
Yeah. So we're going to agree with this one.
All right. This one's interesting. We haven't seen them play yet. Zion Williamson's career will be injury-plagued, and he will never win an MVP. Agree or disagree?
I mean,
I guess I'm kind of wishful thinking because I want to see him play. So I'm going to agree with the fact that I don't think he'll win an MVP.
okay, yeah,
I think he'll be a good player, not an MVP player. I
that's
just
fair.
don't think.
Yeah,
But I disagree with the fact that his career, and maybe I'm just hopeful or wishful thinking, but I don't think it's going to be, the injuries won't be as big as a problem as people think they will be, in my opinion.
yeah. I think
I mean, what are we talking about when we say injury player? Are we talking about injured every year? Like, are we talking like Joel Embiid? Are we what is the?
yeah.
I mean,
That's such a
that's the hard
broad
part.
statement,
Yeah.
you know. But even when you look at a guy like Derrick Rose, his first 4 years in the NBA, no, okay, 3. First, no, it was like first 4 years in the NBA, he didn't miss a game. So, I mean, I think he'll have stretches in his career where he's healthy, but I think
Yeah.
on the full scope of everything, I think overall his career, if you ask me if Zion will be in the league in 10 years, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
How long is this career going to last?
Yeah,
if these injuries continue to be a problem.
It's not built. His game is not built for longevity. Is the thing.
It's built for shorter stints of greatness.
Right. Like he has to. I think it'll be a 3-year window between 22 and 25 years old where he's got to deliver, and then after that, it's like Joel Embiid. It's all foggy after that.
But you agree that?
I don't think he'll win an MVP. That's it's. I mean, he's the type of player that can. I mean,
yeah.
With the amount of hype surrounding Zion, he definitely can win an MVP. But I mean,
hard.
even some of the best players in the league never win an MVP. Dwayne Wade never won an MVP. I mean, so everything has to fall in your favor in order to win an MVP.
Yeah.
So
your teams have to win.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Are you gonna, what's that New Orleans? I mean, this is a different discussion, but that New Orleans team, can you really do enough to elevate them into, I guess, a
contender?
Yeah,
right.
You got to be a contender. So
that's the more tough question.
The last one, and then maybe if we want to, we can finish with just some general NBA.
There was
discussion.
There was actually one that's not on this list that I wanted to do. There was okay. So what it said was Luka and Giannis will face each other in the finals in the 2020s twice, each winning one. Agree or disagree?
I'm gonna agree.
But I think maybe I'll change that a little bit and say they'll face off in the finals at least once. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, yes, I agree with that. Twice.
Twice is like but
I think it'll happen once. It's what is Luka, 20?
Luka's 20 years old and Giannis is 24. But the thing is, the timelines don't really match up. Is the thing.
Yeah.
I think this Mavs team, this Luka and KP era, I think will peak in 4 to 5 years, and in 4 to 5 years, Giannis will be 29 years old.
He'll still be in his prime.
He'll still be in his prime, but will he be able to improve his jump shot enough to still be as dominant as he is now? Because at some point, this is just my opinion. I think at some point with Giannis' style of play, injuries will start to hit. I think he's going to have to shift his game to a more post-up oriented style instead of fast break, attack, attack.
Yeah,
He's going to have to work more in the post.
I agree with that.
So I'm actually going to say no.
Okay.
I don't think the timelines match up.
Okay.
But I will say Luka will get to the finals at some point, and Giannis will get to the finals at some point. I think that.
But they just might not face each other.
Yeah, I just don't think they'll face each other.
Okay.
Right.
That's fair. I can see that. But the last one we have on this list is Pascal Siakam will come close, but will never win an MVP. Agree or disagree?
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
I mean, if you look at the guys with his style of play, like a Blake Griffin, someone of that nature with that athletic style of play, I mean, the team has to be. The thing is, for Pascal Siakam to win the MVP, he's not a very marketable player.
Yeah,
that's
another
kind of
thing
hard.
to say.
That's kind of mean to say, but
Mhm.
I don't think he's as marketable as some other guys in the league. So in order for him to win the MVP, the Raptors got to win at least like 60 games plus.
Yeah, they gotta be top.
They have to be dominant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with that one.
He'll be a really good player, and he might even find a way to sneak into a couple MVP discussions.
Right.
But I don't think he'll win.
Right.
Like actually win the award. So that's gonna do it for that. 1 hour, 10 minutes. Is there any other NBA discussion you want to have before we wrap this thing up?
Shout out to Mavs Nation. I'm gonna say that because Luka is leading the All-Star vote.
Oh yeah,
right now. He's
the early return.
He already has over 1 million votes. So that'll be something to
As you can see, the Mavs win. That's their first win this year after trailing by 10 plus points in a game. They just saw.
I was like, how do you know that?
Yeah, they just
show that on the screen.
Show that on the screen. So that's good.
Yeah.
Is that gonna do
that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good point to end the podcast. So thanks for watching, y'all. That's gonna do it. Episode 37. We'll hopefully be back next week.
Yes.
For
Divisional weekend is one of the best weekends in sports.
Yes, honestly, that's
when you get the best matchups.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the peak week of playoff football.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how.
Michael Wayne, Emmy Nixon. We'll see y'all sometime next week for a divisional round and maybe some other stuff NBA related.
Right.
So until then, peace out. A little rusty.